The Bite of the Mango, Chapter 5. In Magbaru, we kids played with stilts made from slabs of wood, tin cans, and rope. In addition to seeing who could walk the fastest on them, we tried to knock each other down. Usually, there were too many kids for the number of stilts, so we'd end up sharing. My friend Mariato would stand barefoot on my feet and hang on to me, usually around the neck. I would hold onto the ropes. Walking was hard with 4 feet. Even though Mariato tried to lift her own feet in rhythm with mine, with her on top of me, it felt as if I weighed twice as much, and we'd always end up laughing and falling on top of each other. That's how I felt as I began the long walk into Port Loco, as if my body weight had doubled. But now Mariato was gone, and I was terrified. My arms throbbed, particularly near the bottom around my wounds. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, since it was the dry season. The sun was hot already, even though it was still morning. The air was heavy with the smells of the forest, decaying wood, mango blossoms, and dew, and dust from the road. Birds cawed and chirped. I startled in fright the first few times I heard the birds in my imagination. I saw rebels camouflaged in their khaki pants sneaking through the bushes beside me. With every step, I could hear the order from the older rebel to the kids in his charge. "Shoot that girl!" By noon, my bare feet were covered in blisters. I trudged on, telling myself that the village the man mentioned must be near. Sure enough, not far along, the lush countryside opened up. As the trees became more scarce, I heard the first sounds of a village, children's laughter, and the rustle of leaves. I quickened my pace until I was in the center of the village. I could still hear the children, but the village was much quieter than it normally would have been. 2 women with their backs to me were making what looked like a fufu and rice in large steel pots. Another woman sat by their side, mending a pair of boys' pants. "Hello," I said as loudly as I could. My voice came out like a whisper since my throat was parched. None of the women heard me, but someone else did. "Who are you?" a young boy called out. Bug-eyed, he pointed a long finger at me, the way the boy rebels had done with their weapons. The woman jumped up, dropping whatever she had in her hands. "What do you want?" demanded one of them. She appeared to be the oldest of the 3, with wisps of gray in her short hair. She took a few steps toward me, then stopped. "What do you want?" she repeated. She looked very stern. "Please," I stammered, my voice now a little louder. "I need help." I felt my legs wanting to collapse, but I managed to stay upright. "Rebels send girls like you to villages first." The women cut in. "Then, when we're caring for your needs, they attack. Where are they?" She was a heavy woman, and her sturdy legs shook the ground as she stamped. "Tell me where they are, child. Where are the rebels?" "There are no rebels," I said weakly. The woman's temples were throbbing, and sweat trickled down her neck onto her bare breasts. "Please," I begged. "I'm hurt." And with that, I fell forward into the woman's arms. The woman who had caught me laid me down on the dusty ground. The sewing woman was taller, with a narrow face and high cheekbones. She propped her pants she had been mending under my head as a pillow, while the 3rd woman ran off, calling for help. The oldest woman lifted a plastic cup full of water to my lips. I sipped at it. I dared not to drink too much since my abdomen was starting to hurt again, and I was afraid I would throw up. The woman holding the cup explained that she had heard of girls like me being used as decoys. My mind drifted back to the girls I'd seen in Manarma with the rebels. Apparently the girl would feign injury and get unsuspecting villagers to help them. While everyone was busy with that, the rebels would sneak into the village unnoticed and attack. The 2 women washed my face and then delicately unwound the fabric around my arms. "Your wounds are very serious," the older one said. "We need to get you to the medical clinic in Port Loco. Can you walk?" I nodded, and the two women helped me stand. They walked beside me, close enough to catch me if I fell. We made our way back to the main road and started our trek into Port Loko. After a while, the road filled with women carrying big basins of fruit and vegetables on their backs and heads. I looked down to avoid their stares, but I could feel them looking at me. Then a voice called out, "You, you, you." When I looked up, a bare-chested man was pointing at me. The two women stopped and told me to do the same. "You," the man continued, coming right up to me. "Look at this person," he demanded. He pointed at a man being dragged toward us. The captive had a rope around his neck and his wrists tied behind him like a dam Ziz and mine had been in Manarma. "Do you recognize him?" the bare-chested man barked. I did recognize the man who was tied up. He had married a beautiful woman from Magbrew not long before. When he first announced his intentions to the people of our village, he and his family were given big cups full of water as a symbol of approval, peace, and purity. The entire village turned out a month later to watch the man arrive for the week-long wedding ceremony. He came laden with food. The woman's family had sent via messenger a list of what they wanted: a goat, a big bag of rice, beans, fried dumplings, and fruit. As it is customary in our culture, the man had presented his bride-to-be with a calabash, or gourd, full of household items, including a needle and thread, candies, and a copy of Koran. Also inside was a dowry of several thousand leones, the money we used in Sierra Leone, which the bride's family distributed among their relatives. For the ceremony, the woman wore a lovely white docket and lapa with lace sewn into it and a matching headscarf. The man was dressed in a golden brown gown and cap. I didn't know him, but he seemed nice, taking my hand at one point during the festivities and dancing with me. Now here he was, being dragged down the road like a wedding goat being led to slaughter. I hesitated, not sure what to do. "Yes, I know this man," I finally said to the fellow standing in front of me. But the man cut me off. "I thought so," he said angrily. "We caught him with an army sack and a red bandana like the rebels wear. He is one of the rebels. Even if he didn't personally cut your hands off, we will kill him in your honor." "No, wait!" My voice was thin and scratchy. "I know him from my village." My head was spinning, and I was so weak I was certain I would collapse any minute. I tried so hard to get the words out to tell the man to stop, but I couldn't. By now, all the people on the road had moved to the sides as spectators. The man who had accosted me pointed his long gun at the captive. Bang, bang, bang. 3 gunshots echoed in my head as the man I knew from the wedding fell backwards onto the ground. I closed my eyes. No more, I prayed to Allah, no more bloodshed. The hospital clinic in Port Loko was a square building made of gray cement. People of all shapes and sizes were waiting for help. Old men, women holding, screaming, and bloody babies. Young children cradling their arms like me. The 2 women led me to a vacant spot under a mango tree. I tried to prop myself up against the tree trunk, but I couldn't manage it. I slumped to the ground and entered a fitful sleep in which I kept seeing people being shot. At some point, the older woman shook me awake and helped me sit up. "Come," she said, guiding me. "The nurses can see you now." Inside the clinic, I was even hotter than outside. A wind ruffled the dirty white curtains that hung over the windows, but there was so many people lying on the bare floors and leaning up against the walls that the breeze didn't get very far. I found it hard to breathe. A woman wearing a stiff white dress and matching cap took me by the shoulders. She was a nurse, she explained, and she would help me as best as she could. After I lay down on a metal bed, she put a thin blanket, the color of the sky, over me. I closed my eyes and drifted, but I was aware of everything going on around me. Women speaking softly, children whimpering, occasionally someone screamed, and when I heard that, my body twitched. "We want to go to Port Loko next," the rebel said inside my head over and over again. I felt the nurse unwind the fabric from my arms. "Where did this happen to you?" I said. "Manarma," I groaned. "Who did this to you?" "The rebels." As I said the words, I panicked. "They said they're coming to Port Loko next," I repeated hysterically, trying to sit up. The nurse attempted to calm me. "You're safe here." Ekmog patrols the city. Even if the rebels attack, they will be killed. You don't know what they are capable of doing. I insisted, shaking my head from side to side. There is an Ekmog truck here taking the sickest people to Connaught Hospital in Freetown. The nurse continued. We don't have the medications here to fight your infection. You must go with them. As she helped me sit up, I noticed for the first time that the nurse was pretty, with high cheekbones and smooth black hair blushed neatly underneath her cap. She looked only a few years older than me. I felt dizzier than ever. My stomach convulsed. I started to vomit, but nothing came out. The nurse supported me as I got back on my feet, then led me down a crowded hall to the back door of the clinic. As soon as she opened the door, I began to scream. She grabbed hold of me as I tried to run away. Rebels, I shouted, rebels! No, the nurse said in a reassuring voice. These men are the Ekmog. They're here to help you. They're on your side. I looked more closely at the three men standing by the truck. They wore the same khaki pants as the rebels, and guns and bullets were draped around their bodies too. The only thing different about them was their matching khaki shirts and hats. One of the soldiers smiled at me. May I touch you? He asked, stepping toward me. I said nothing as he lifted me onto the back of the truck. There were benches lining the sides, and a green tarp covered the top. The rest was wide open. A soldier inside found me an empty place to sit. As I glanced around at the bloodied faces of the others, I shivered. There were people with no ears, some with no arms, and one person with an eye missing. Then my heart stopped. I gasped, and I looked into the sad brown eyes of first Muhammad and then Ibrahim.